The sound of cicadas filled the late summer evening as Marcus Holloway carried the last box from his pickup truck into the small two-story house. The house wasn't much, but it was his. After the divorce, after the court hearings, after the endless silence of an empty apartment, this place in suburban Ohio felt like a chance to start over. The neighborhood looked peaceful, neatly cut lawns, kids' bicycles leaning against garage doors, flags waving gently from porches. Marcus was tired. His work as an electrician demanded long hours, crawling through attics and basements, troubleshooting tangled wires no one else wanted to deal with. But this house gave him hope. A yard, a driveway, and even something as simple as his own trash. Cans lined up on the curb every Tuesday morning. It felt like order returning to his life. What Marcus didn't know was that peace in this neighborhood had its price. And that price had a name: Brenda Whitmore. She appeared the very next morning. Marcus had been adjusting the blinds in the kitchen when he saw the pearl-white Escalade pull up. It was oversized, spotless, almost gleaming like it wanted everyone to know who owned it. Out stepped Brenda, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, stiff blonde hair sprayed into perfect shape, and a clipboard tucked under her arm as if it were part of her body. She moved down the street slowly, checking yards, peering at trash cans, scribbling notes. She wasn't smiling. Marcus thought little of it at first. Must be neighborhood watch, he muttered, sipping coffee. But by the time she stopped in front of his driveway, stared for a full 10 seconds at his brand new black trash can, and then wrote something on her paper, a knot formed in his stomach. That evening, when Marcus wheeled the bin back in after collection, he noticed a flyer taped to the lid. HOA reminder: trash cans must be placed no earlier than 6 a.m. on pickup day. Violations may result in fines. Marcus frowned. He had put his can out at 5:50, just before leaving for work. 10 minutes early, that was enough for a warning. He crumpled the paper, shook his head, and told himself not to overthink it. But 2 mornings later, something strange happened. Marcus walked outside to find his trash can lying on its side in the street, cracked along the rim as if something heavy had struck it. The lid was broken, one wheel missing. A trail of scrape marks on the asphalt lined up perfectly with the tire tracks of a large vehicle. Marcus stared, confused. Had some teenager been reckless with their car, or had someone hit it by mistake? He set the can upright, but a part of him kept replaying the sight of Brenda's Escalade parked across the street the night before. The following week erased all doubt. Marcus had just returned from work when he heard a loud thud outside. He rushed out the door. There, in broad daylight, Brenda's Escalade was reversing out of his driveway. His trash can lay smashed flat against the curb, plastic shattered into pieces. Marcus froze. For a second he couldn't believe what he had seen. She hadn't even looked guilty. She drove away as if crushing his bin was routine. His chest burned with anger. He shouted, but the roar of the engine drowned his voice. That night, Marcus stood in his garage staring at the wrecked can. It wasn't just about the plastic anymore. It was about respect. It was about someone deciding they could control him, that they could humiliate him and get away with it. When he called the HOA number on the warning flyer to report the damage, the woman on the line responded flatly, "We'll make a note of it. But you're responsible for your own property." Marcus clenched his jaw. "So she can just run it over, and I'm the one who pays for a new one. Sir, if you have evidence, you're free to bring it to the next board meeting." The tone said everything. They weren't going to help. He bought a replacement trash can the next day. Stronger plastic, larger wheels, heavy lid. But a week later, the same thing happened. Brenda's Escalade, early morning, a loud bang and another shattered bin. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table, staring out the window into the quiet street, a notebook open in front of him. His pen tapped against the paper. Evidence, they had said. Fine, he would get evidence. The following evening, Marcus mounted a small camera above his garage, an old security model he once installed for a client, now recording silently over his driveway. For 3 nights, nothing happened. But on the 4th morning, just before sunrise, he heard the crunch of tires. On the footage, Brenda's Escalade rolled slowly past, then stopped. She looked around, reversed slightly, and with a quick turn of the wheel, slammed into the trash. Plastic exploded across the driveway. She drove off, not even glancing back. Marcus replayed the clip over and over. Anger rose in him like fire. But beneath the anger, something sharper was forming a plan. That Saturday, instead of buying another plastic bin, Marcus visited a salvage yard. He came home with steel rebar, thick plywood, and several bags of quick-set concrete in his garage. He worked for hours, cutting, welding, mixing. Sweat dripped down his back, sparks flying as metal met metal. By nightfall, a new trash can stood ready. Concrete walls hidden inside a plastic shell. Steel reinforced, weighing nearly 200 pounds. It looked ordinary from the outside, but it wasn't ordinary at all. On Monday morning, Marcus set the can neatly by the curb. He sat back with his coffee, camera ready, waiting. At 6:15 a.m. The familiar pearl-white Escalade rolled down the street. Marcus's pulse quickened. Brenda slowed, eyeing the can. She reversed, accelerated bang. The sound shook the windows. The Escalade jolted violently, hood crumpling against the immovable concrete. The front bumper tore loose, plastic shards scattering across the road. Steam hissed from the radiator. Marcus nearly laughed out loud, but he pressed his lips shut, watching through narrowed eyes. Brenda slammed the gear into park, jumped out, and stared at the ruined front end of her car. Her face twisted, half shock, half rage. She glanced around quickly, then stomped back into the driver's seat, trying to drive away, but the Escalade groaned, crippled. She crawled slowly down the street, sparks scraping from underneath. Marcus leaned back, heart pounding with grim satisfaction. Finally, the damage was hers to bear. He downloaded the footage that evening, saving multiple copies, one for himself, one for the police, if needed, one for a lawyer, because Marcus knew this wasn't over. The Escalade sat in Brenda's driveway. For almost a week, hood dented, one headlight missing, front bumper gone. Neighbors noticed. Some laughed quietly when they drove past. Others whispered in their kitchens, but no one said anything to Brenda directly. She walked around with the same stiff posture, pretending nothing had happened. Marcus thought maybe that was it. Maybe she had finally learned her lesson. But peace never lasts long when someone like Brenda feels humiliated. One evening, as Marcus was rewiring a bathroom fan, his phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from the HOA. He pressed play. "Mr. Holloway, this is a formal notice. We've received multiple complaints that your trash receptacle does not comply with community standards. You are required to replace it within 14 days or face fines." Marcus froze. He replayed the message twice. Community standards. His trash can looked like any other bin on the street. The only difference was what it was made of, something no one could even tell by looking. He walked outside. Across the street, Brenda was standing in her driveway, phone in hand, smirking. She gave him a little wave, like a queen acknowledging a servant. Marcus clenched his fists. The next board meeting was held in the small clubhouse near the entrance of the neighborhood. Marcus sat in the back row, his phone ready with the video of Brenda ramming his bin. The board president, a tired-looking man in a polo shirt, called the meeting to order. Brenda sat at the front, clipboard in hand, her damaged Escalade still fresh in everyone's memory. First issue on the agenda, she said smoothly, is compliance. One of our residents has modified his trash receptacle in a way that poses a hazard to vehicles and pedestrians. This is unacceptable. Marcus's jaw dropped. She was talking about him. He shot his hand into the air. Hazard, you're the one who hit it. I have the video right here. Brenda smiled sweetly. Sir, please, no interruptions. You'll have your turn. The president sighed. Marcus, let her finish. Marcus's blood boiled, but he sat down. Brenda went on, her words sharp and precise. She painted Marcus as dangerous, reckless, even vengeful. By the time she finished, half the room was murmuring. Finally, Marcus stood. He played the video on his phone, holding it high so everyone could see Brenda's Escalade smash into his bin. Gasps filled the room. A few people even laughed. Brenda's face flushed red. That video is taken out of context, she snapped. You don't know what led up to it. Yeah, I do, Marcus shot back. You were bored, so you decided to bully me. And now that you've wrecked your car, you're trying to twist the rules to punish me instead. The room grew tense. The president cleared his throat. All right. Enough. Both sides have spoken. We'll review this later. Marcus left the meeting with his chest tight. The board hadn't done anything. Brenda still had power. The harassment grew worse after that. His mailbox was knocked over twice in a week. Small nails appeared scattered across his driveway. Once, he found a notice taped to his door claiming his grass was too tall even, though it had been mowed the day before. Every time he tried to report her, the HOA brushed it aside. Not enough proof, they said. But Marcus kept recording. Every broken mailbox, every bogus notice, every whisper from neighbors who had their own stories about Brenda Howe. She fined an elderly widow for having her curtains the wrong shade of white. How she made a single mother pay $300 for leaving toys in the yard. How she threatened to sue a family for parking their RV in their own driveway. The pattern was clear. Brenda wasn't just petty. She was using the HOA as her personal weapon. One evening, Marcus was walking his dog when an older neighbor, Mr. Keller, stopped him. You're the new guy, right? Keller asked in a low voice. Yeah, Marcus said cautiously. Keller glanced around before leaning closer. Don't let her scare you. She's been running this place for years, thinks she owns it, but she's hiding something. My guess, money, lots of it. Marcus's ears perked up. Money, Keller nodded. HOA has been paying her brother's construction company for all kinds of repairs, tens of thousands of dollars, but nothing ever gets fixed. You didn't hear it from me. He walked off quickly, not wanting to be seen talking. That night, Marcus sat at his kitchen table again, papers spread across the surface, his laptop glowing. He wasn't just dealing with a bully anymore. This was bigger. This was corruption. And if Brenda thought she could keep silencing people, she had no idea who she was up against. The glow of Marcus's laptop lit up the kitchen table late into the night. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't care. He was staring at rows of HOA financial statements he had downloaded from the community portal. Most people ignored these documents, but Marcus wasn't most people. He had spent years tracing electrical circuits, following wires until he found where the current leaked. Now he was doing the same thing, but with money. Line after line of payments caught his eye. Whitmore Construction LLC, again and again. Thousands for landscaping improvements, thousands more for community repairs. Yet when Marcus thought about the neighborhood, he saw broken sidewalks, fading paint on the clubhouse, a playground swing still missing its chain. His stomach tightened. Mr. Keller had been right. This wasn't just petty harassment. Brenda was bleeding the neighborhood dry. The next morning, Marcus knocked on Keller's door. The old man answered with wary eyes. "I know you said not to mention it," Marcus began, lowering his voice. "But you were right. Her family's company is taking money from the HOA. A lot of it." Keller hesitated, then sighed. "I figured as much. She's been at it for years. Everyone knows, but no one wants to fight her. Too much trouble." Marcus nodded slowly. Maybe it's time someone did. Over the next week, Marcus turned his garage into a war room. A corkboard covered in receipts, notices, and screenshots leaned against the wall. Red strings connected Brenda's family company to inflated invoices, HOA votes, and bank withdrawals. His workbench, usually scattered with wires and tools, now held labeled folders of evidence. And every time Brenda struck another fake violation, another damaged mailbox, Marcus added it to the pile. He wasn't alone anymore. One by one, neighbors began to talk. A mother of 3 admitted Brenda. Find her 4 loud children. A retiree showed Marcus a letter demanding he repaint his fence because the shade of brown was unacceptable. A young couple confessed Brenda had threatened to foreclose on their home over unpaid fees they swore they had already paid. Marcus listened, recorded their statements, and added them to his growing case. Each story fueled him. Each paper, each photo, each video clip was another brick in the wall he was building around Brenda. But Brenda wasn't blind. She noticed the shift. She noticed neighbors gathering in Marcus's driveway, whispering, handing him papers. And she noticed Marcus's cameras watching. One evening, as Marcus sat on his porch sipping water after work, the Escalade rolled slowly past. Brenda's window slid down. "You think you're clever, don't you?" Her voice was sharp, dripping with disdain. Marcus met her eyes calmly. "Just tired of being pushed around." She leaned closer. "Careful, Marcus. You don't know who you're dealing with." Then the window slid up, and the Escalade drove off. That night, Marcus found scratches on the side of his truck. Deep, deliberate. He checked his footage. At 2:17 a.m., Brenda's figure appeared on the screen, crouched beside his vehicle, key in hand. The evidence was clear as daylight. He saved. It printed still images and stored copies in multiple places. She was no longer just a bully, she was committing crimes. The next day, Marcus met with a lawyer downtown, a sharp-eyed woman named Allison, who listened quietly as Marcus laid out his evidence. When the video ended, Allison leaned back in her chair, impressed. "You've got a strong case. Harassment, vandalism, selective enforcement, misuse of funds. With enough neighbors backing you, we can do real damage." Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. That weekend, he hosted a quiet gathering in his garage. 15 neighbors showed up, folding chairs squeezed between his workbench and shelves. Marcus laid out the documents, the videos, the statements. "This isn't just about me," he said firmly. "It's about all of us. She's been using fear to control this neighborhood. But we have proof now. If we stand together, she can't ignore us anymore." There was silence for a moment. Then Mrs. Lopez, the widow who had been fined for her curtains, spoke softly. "I'll stand with you." One by one, others agreed. Heads nodded. Voices rose. By the end of the night, Marcus wasn't just one man fighting back. He was the leader of a movement. Brenda must have felt it, because the next morning, Marcus woke up to find a new notice taped to his door. This one was different. Final warning: due to repeated non-compliance, the HOA reserves the right to place a lien on your property. Payment due immediately. Marcus tore the paper down, fury boiling in his chest. She was trying to take his home, but instead of despair, he smiled grimly. Because this time, he wasn't afraid. He had her cornered, and soon, the whole neighborhood would see who Brenda really was. The autumn wind carried a chill through the neighborhood as Marcus walked down the street. A folder tucked under his arm. Inside were copies of everything: photos, receipts, videos. Each piece of evidence was like a nail hammered into Brenda's coffin. But Brenda wasn't backing down. She was doubling her efforts. That week, Marcus received 3 separate violation letters. One claimed his porch light was too bright. Another accused him of having unauthorized yard equipment because his ladder leaned against the side of the house after work. The third warned that his dog's leash exceeded approved length. It would have been laughable if it weren't so serious. Each notice came with the threat of fines, and each fine meant leverage Brenda could use against him. Marcus saved every letter. He filed them carefully, date-stamped, photographed, and scanned. Evidence, more evidence, and then even more. One evening, he met Allison, his lawyer, at a small diner. Over steaming mugs of coffee, he slid the folder across the table. "She's escalating," Marcus said, "and she's making it easier for us." Allison flipped through the papers, nodding slowly. "Good. The more ridiculous her claims, the more credibility you gain." "But Marcus," she paused, her tone firm, "you need to be careful. People like Brenda don't go down quietly. When bullies lose control, they get dangerous." Marcus thought about the scratches on his truck, the nails on his driveway, the way Brenda had looked at him from her car window, eyes burning with hatred. He nodded slowly. "I know." That very night, his cameras caught something worse. At 1:43 a.m., a shadowy figure appeared on the footage. Brenda, wearing dark clothes, crouching near his side fence. In her hand was a small device later. Marcus realized it was a motion sensor camera. She strapped it to his fence, adjusted it, and walked away. Marcus's chest tightened as he replayed the footage. She wasn't just harassing him anymore. She was watching him. The next morning, he found the device. He held it in his hand, anger boiling. Illegal surveillance, another crime, another piece of evidence. By then, whispers were spreading through the neighborhood. People were tired. Tired of fines, tired of notices, tired of Brenda's iron grip. Marcus became a quiet hero, the man who finally stood up when no one else dared. One afternoon, Mrs. Lopez knocked on his door. Her hands trembled as she handed him a manila envelope. I kept these," she whispered. Inside were old HOA statements, years of them, with handwritten notes showing questionable payments. "I was afraid to say anything before, but you're fighting her, and maybe you can win." Marcus thanked her, his heart heavy with both gratitude and determination. Each page made the picture clearer. Brenda and her family had stolen nearly $50,000 through bogus contracts. That night, Marcus spread everything on his garage workbench. The corkboard was almost full now, every pin and string connecting to Brenda. He stood back, staring at the web of lies and theft. He knew what he had to do. The next HOA board meeting would be the battleground. In the days leading up, Brenda's behavior grew frantic. She circled his house in her Escalade at odd hours. His mailbox was destroyed again. He caught her on camera, yelling at a teenager down the street for skateboarding. She even called animal control on his dog, claiming it was aggressive, though the gentle mutt had never hurt anyone. Marcus documented it all. Each act of harassment was like rope tightening round her neck. But Brenda wasn't finished. On the night before the meeting, Marcus found his garage door spray-painted with the words, liar, cheat, fraud. His hands shook with fury as he scrubbed at the paint, but deep inside, he almost felt a grim satisfaction. She was losing control. The next evening, the clubhouse filled with people, more than Marcus had ever seen at an HOA meeting. Word had spread something big was coming. Brenda sat at the front, clipboard in hand, face stiff with forced confidence. But Marcus could see the tension in her eyes. She knew the walls were closing in. Marcus sat quietly, folder on his lap, waiting. His neighbors glanced at him, some nodding, some whispering encouragement. When his name was finally called, Marcus stood. He walked to the front slowly, the folder heavy in his hand. He looked around the room at the faces of people who had been living under Brenda's rule for years. And then he began. "Some of you know what's been happening to me," he said, his voice steady. "But this isn't just about me. It's about all of us." He pulled out the first paper violation notice about his porch light and read it aloud. Then another about his ladder. Then another about his dog leash. The room chuckled uneasily. These are petty, but they're part of a pattern of harassment. And I'm not the only one. He held up Mrs. Lopez's old statements. "Here's proof that Brenda's family company has received nearly $50,000 from this HOA over the last 3 years. Payments for work that was never done. That's not just unfair, that's theft." The room erupted in murmurs. Some gasped. Others whispered angrily. Marcus pulled out his phone and played the video of Brenda smashing his trash can with her Escalade. Laughter spread across the room. Then he played the video of her scratching his truck. Gasps replaced laughter. Finally, he showed the footage of her sneaking onto his property to install a hidden camera. The room fell silent. Marcus looked directly at Brenda. "You've used fear to control this community. You've stolen from us, lied to us, and harassed us. But tonight, it ends." The silence in the clubhouse was heavy. You could hear the hum of the ceiling fan, the shuffling of papers, the quickened breathing of neighbors who had never seen Brenda cornered like this. Brenda's face was pale, but her lips twisted into a fake smile. She leaned forward, her voice dripping with poison. This is outrageous," she snapped. "These so-called videos could be doctored. These papers, taken out of context. He's twisting everything to make himself look like a victim." But her voice trembled. Everyone could hear it. Marcus stood calmly, his folder still open. "If you think the videos are fake, I'll be happy to provide copies to the police, to the county inspector, to the state auditor." He let the words hang in the air. "Would you like me to?" A murmur rippled through the room. Someone in the back shouted, "Do it." Another said, "We've had enough." Brenda slammed her clipboard onto the table. "This is a smear campaign. He's a troublemaker. He's trying to destroy this community." But before she could continue, Mrs. Lopez rose from her seat, voice shaking but strong. "No, Brenda, you destroyed it. You've been destroying it for years." Gasps filled the room. An elderly man stood next. "She'd fined me $200 for leaving my trash can out 2 hours late." 2 hours, while her own car sat broken in her driveway. "For weeks," another voice chimed in. "She made us pay $5,000 for fence repairs. No one ever fixed a thing." The room erupted. People stood, voices rising, stories spilling out all at once. Years of bottled-up frustration exploded into the open. Brenda tried to shout over them, her face red, veins showing in her neck. "Order, order, you're all being manipulated." But the board president raised his hand. For once, his voice carried authority. "Enough." He looked at Marcus. "Do you have copies of all this evidence?" Marcus handed him a thick folder. "Everything. Financial statements, videos, neighbor statements. It's all there." The president flipped through the papers, his face growing darker with each page. Finally, he looked up at Brenda. "Is this true?" Brenda's mouth opened, then closed. She stuttered. It's not what it looks like. My brother's company, he did work, you just didn't see it." "Liar," someone shouted. The word echoed, followed by another, then another. "Liar, liar." Brenda's composure cracked. She slammed her fists onto the table. "You're all ungrateful. Without me, this place would fall apart. I gave my life to this neighborhood." The president's voice cut through the noise. "Brenda Whitmore, effective immediately. You are suspended from all HOA duties, pending investigation." The room exploded into applause, cheers, even laughter. Some neighbors hugged, others clapped Marcus on the back. For the first time in years, people felt free. But Marcus wasn't done. He held up one last sheet of paper. "One more thing. I've already contacted local authorities. They'll be reviewing this evidence for embezzlement, harassment, and insurance fraud." Brenda's face drained of color. She sank into her chair, her mouth opening in silent shock. The board president nodded slowly. "Then this matter is officially out of our hands. The police will handle the rest." Marcus exhaled, his body trembling with relief. The fight that had consumed months of his life was finally reaching its end. Around him, neighbors shook his hand, thanked him, praised his courage. As the meeting adjourned, Brenda stormed out, shoulders hunched, her once proud stride broken. Her Escalade sat outside, its dents and scratches still visible under the parking lot lights. She climbed in, slammed the door, and roared away into the night. Marcus stood in the cool air, looking up at the dark sky. For the first time in months, he felt the weight lift from his shoulders. He wasn't just a divorced electrician in a quiet suburb anymore. He was the man who had stood up, fought back, and won. But the real victory wasn't just his. It belonged to the whole neighborhood. Weeks passed after the stormy HOA meeting, but the echoes of that night stayed in everyone's mind. Brenda Whitmore, once untouchable, was suddenly nowhere to be seen. Her daily patrols stopped. The clipboard vanished. The barking voice that had terrorized the streets was silent. But silence doesn't mean peace at first. It meant the storm had moved to the courts. News spread fast. Local newspapers printed stories about HOA president accused of embezzlement. Neighbors whispered over fences about police cars parked outside Brenda's house. Rumors of fraud, secret accounts, and shady insurance claims swirled like wildfire. Marcus stayed calm. He had handed everything to the authorities, and now it was out of his hands. For the first time in months, he slept through the night. One Saturday morning, while mowing his lawn, he saw Brenda's Escalade being towed away. She stood on her porch, arguing with officers, her face red, her voice desperate. But this time, no one cared. No one defended her. Neighbors peeked from windows, some even smiled. The queen of the HOA was dethroned. A few weeks later, the board called another community meeting. This time, the mood was different. People brought snacks, children played outside, laughter filled the air. The board president stood and cleared his throat. "We've audited the accounts." Brenda siphoned off nearly $60,000 over 5 years. She signed inflated contracts, took kickbacks, and pocketed HOA funds. Charges have been filed. Gasps and murmurs spread, but no one was surprised. Then he looked at Marcus. "And we owe thanks to Mr. Holloway. Without his persistence, none of this would have come to light." The crowd clapped, louder and longer than Marcus expected. He raised his hand awkwardly, embarrassed, but smiling. After the meeting, Mrs. Lopez came up and hugged him. "You gave us our community back." From then on, things began to change. Fines were reviewed, fees reduced, money redirected to real improvements, fixing streetlights, repairing sidewalks, planting trees. The neighborhood, once divided by fear, began to feel alive again. As for Marcus, life found balance. His business thrived. Neighbors recommended him for electrical work. His children visited more often, playing in the front yard without fear of Brenda's constant watch. He even started joining community cookouts, laughing with people who had once been strangers. But there was one symbol that everyone remembered: the concrete trash can. It still stood by the curb in front of Marcus's house, unmovable, scarred, with chips from Brenda's SUV. Kids tapped it with sticks. Neighbors pointed at it when telling the story. It became more than a trash can. It was a monument, a reminder of when one man stood firm against tyranny, using patience, wit, and just enough concrete. Some joked that it should be put in the neighborhood park with a plaque. Here stood the can that ended Brenda's reign. Marcus laughed whenever he heard it, but deep inside, he knew it was true. That trash can wasn't just about garbage. It was about dignity, about saying enough, about proving that even in the quietest suburb, courage could shake the ground. And so, life moved on. Brenda faced her charges. The community healed. Marcus lived in peace, not the fragile peace he once sought, but a stronger, richer one, the kind you earn when you fight for what's right. At night, as he sat on his porch with a cold drink, Marcus often looked at the concrete can under the streetlight. It looked ordinary to anyone else, but to him it was a story of resistance, justice, and renewal. And in that quiet suburb, the legend of the trash can lived on, told over barbecues, whispered to newcomers, and remembered as the day a community found its voice.